to tonight's webinar session of the 10-year Plan Recovery Budget webinar. This is the last in our series, and tonight the focus is on the West. To begin with, we'll just go through and introduce our panel, starting perhaps with Councillor Fletcher, who is our ward councillor for Albert Eden and Puketapapa.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm Christine Fletcher and really looking forward to hearing what you've got to say this evening. I represent Albert Eden Puketapapa as a ward, but I'm sitting here as a regional councillor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
Koto everybody. I'm Linda Cooper. I'm the councillor for Waitakere, which includes the Henderson Massey local board area and the Waitakere Rangers local board area, and we're looking forward to hearing your questions tonight and being able to answer them.
Thank you. Councillor Sayers.
Oh, thank you very much, Sally. So I represent the Rodney ward, which is quite a large chunk of the Auckland area, but it interfaces with Councillor Cooper and Councillor Henderson's Western ward. So I'm particularly interested to be listening in tonight and gaining the thoughts and ideas from constituents from the West. Thank you, Sally.
Thank you, Councillor. And I think we have Kay Thomas, the chair of the Faux local board. No. Then perhaps we can go to Lucy Hawcroft.
Kia ora, I'm Lucy Hawcroft. I'm the Climate Action Program Manager.
So back to you, Kay. No? Yes?
Right. It's Councillor Tracy Mulholland.
Oh, beg your pardon. Beg your pardon.
I'm sorry, Sally. Are you actually?
It says panel.
Yeah,
so
sorry, I'm Councillor Mulholland. Yeah.
Beg your pardon. I'm guessing from panel.
Kia ora everyone. Tracy Mulholland, Faux, and outlined by Councillor Fletcher. I too am regional. Have a regional view, so nice to see everyone and looking forward to hearing from people. Kia ora tātou.
Thank you, and apologies, Councillor. Anna Jennings, come to you.
Kia ora, I'm Anna Jennings. I'm a Principal Advisor on Housing and Urban Growth, and look forward to any questions around that topic.
Thank you, and we have two of our financial experts here, Pramod and Andrew Duncan.
Kia ora everyone. My name's Pramod. I'm in the council's finance team. I help support with the budgeting side for the long-term plan, and I'll be doing a brief presentation with Andrew this evening and help support answer any of your questions that you may have. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Andrew Duncan. I'll provide advice to the council on rates and development contributions.
Fantastic, and we've got one last person who's joined us. Sorry, I'm not sure of your name. Maybe this is my Kay that I'm looking for.
Kay Thomas from the chair of the Faux local board. Yeah.
Thank you. Welcome, Kay. So the format for this evening is that we'll play a brief video from our Mayor Phil Goff to introduce what's happening with this budget. And then we're going to go into a presentation from Pramod and Andrew to run you through the financial details of what's represented in this budget. And we've got this great panel of experts here who will be readily waiting for your questions. So you'll see down the bottom of your screen the questions and answers. If you could pop those questions in while you're listening to the videos and the presentation, and we'll come to you and answer those after these presentations. So over to you, Marina, if we could start the video, thank you.
This year is the year of recovery from COVID-19. We stopped the spread of the disease, but the economic impact and hit on council revenue was real. This 10-year budget is about how we get the best outcomes for Auckland. It will provide for our city's future while keeping our rates increases low compared to other growth cities in New Zealand. We'll help Auckland's economy recover, support our communities, build water and housing infrastructure, and improve our transport network. We'll continue to make progress on cleaning up our beaches and streams and on our long-term response to climate change. Auckland Council is forecast to take a $1 billion revenue hit because of COVID-19. This budget aims to find a balance between investing in our city and not overburdening our residents. We need your feedback on these issues and how we pay for them. To have your say, go to akhaveyoursay.nz/recovery budget and tell us what you think of our plans for the future of Auckland.
Sorry, here we go. We're joined by a number of other people tonight, and they'll just keep coming in to this webinar, so I won't keep introducing them, but I think now we will cut to our financial presentation. If we could start with I think Pramod is introducing this first.
Thanks, Sally. I'm just sharing the presentation. I'm hoping people can see it. Yep. Okay, great. Okay, yep, as Sally's mentioned, and I mentioned earlier, I'm Pramod Nair. I'm from the Council's finance team, and I'll be walking you through the key regional issues that we're consulting on with Aucklanders for our proposed long-term plan, and Andrew Duncan will be supporting me through this process. So first of all, what is a 10-year budget or long-term plan? So councils across the country prepare 10-year budgets, often called long-term plans, every 3 years. They look at the activities the council will focus on and how they will fund them. I don't think it comes as a surprise to anyone at the moment that this is not a business as usual 10-year budgeting process. Hearing from Aucklanders on our plans is a key part of the process, and we want to hear from as many as we can. Your input will support the elected members as they make final decisions in June. The council, like so many others, is feeling significant impacts of COVID-19. We are projecting to lose around $1 billion in revenue over 4 years. Meanwhile, we still need to plan for the projected growth of the city and to look after the infrastructure that delivers the services we all value. We also need to face up to the challenges of climate change, both in terms of emissions reduction and adaptation to climate change. This is why we are referring to this as our recovery budget. The real challenge behind this budget is one of balance. On one hand, an increased need for council investment, but on the other, less availability of funds to make this investment. I have already mentioned Auckland's growth, infrastructure needs, and climate change, but we also need to continue the work we have started on our transport network. We need to ensure our activities match the changing needs of our people, and we need to play our part in supporting recovery from COVID-19. At the same time, we have less capacity to invest. We have talked about the reductions in expected revenue due to COVID, but we also need to be careful how much we borrow to ensure we have headroom for any future shocks. Large sections of our funding is already committed through major projects such as the CRL and the Central Interceptor. We also need to consider the overall impact of funding options we propose on the communities we serve. Sorry, Marina, were you trying to take over the presentation by any chance? Okay, so our draft long-term plan looks at 5 key issues. Our first key issue is around our proposed investment package. This is essentially our response to the balancing challenge in the last slide. We are proposing to invest $31 billion over the next 10 years. The timing of this investment is crucial given the challenges we are facing. Our proposal enables this investment to average $2.9 billion for the next 3 years. This totals $900 million more than we would otherwise be able to afford. To achieve this, we will continue our focus on savings and value and lock in at least 90 million of permanent, ongoing annual savings. As we did in the emergency budget, we will look to release 70 million a year over the next 3 years by selling or leasing surplus properties. Sorry, there is a bit of a lag in my slideshow. We're also increasing our borrowing to temporarily higher debt to revenue ratio of up to 290% for the first 3 years, gradually returning to 270% thereafter. And we're also proposing to stick with a rates increase of 3.5% per annum over the long term, but have a higher increase of 5% for the next year. So what are we proposing to do with this additional investment? First of all, we're proposing to invest an additional 550 million on Auckland's transport network, an additional 54 million on our stormwater infrastructure, 65 million on parks and community funding. And this will go towards more renewals and also additional parks and sports fields in areas of greatest need. We're also proposing additional investment for our art gallery heritage building, as well as accelerating work on landfills to address health and safety concerns. Our second key issue is related to climate change. It's not down to the council to tackle climate change on their own, but we want to lead from the front. We're already doing a lot of work to tackle emissions, including phasing out gas boilers in council aquatic centres, introducing more electric vehicles in the council fleet, and providing walking, cycling, and public transport options.
Sorry, Pramod. I just want you to change the mode of the presentation, please. I'm trying to contact you.
Oh, did you? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. How would you? What would you like me to do?
Okay. Let's.
It does say you've got the control of it.
I don't actually. So I'm gonna just stop the presentation, and I will come back to the same slide for you. Okay.
Yep. Sure.
I will do the slides for you. Sorry about everyone. Just trying to fix the problem here. 1 minute. I will do this sharing screen now. Okay, can you see the screen now?
Yes, I can. Yep. Okay, cool. The proposed package includes.
Just say yes, and next slide, and I will change. Okay.
Okay, no worries. Okay, so the proposed package includes no new diesel buses, all electric or hydrogen from this year. Big planting projects including both street trees and more native forest, increasing our zero waste recovery network, improving efficiency of our facilities and partnering with others in supporting our communities to reduce emissions as well as energy costs. Next slide, please.
Sorry.
Our third key issue is about responding to housing and growth. Yeah, next slide, please. Over the next 10 years, we expect 260,000 more people to call Auckland home. The Auckland Unitary Plan has enabled the development of more than 1 million homes in existing residential areas and 137,000 in planned future urban areas. We need to provide infrastructure and services to support this development, but cannot afford to do it all now. We propose to focus our resources on a few key locations. Areas agreed with the government as part of the Auckland Housing Programme, which include Mount Roskill, Tamaki and Mangere, where there is other significant government investment plans such as Drury and other areas of the Northwest, and where investment in big projects like CRL is being made. Next slide, please. Our fourth key issue is about our investment in our community. Next slide, please. Councils have traditionally provided community services using a large network of buildings. Over time, the needs of our communities have and are changing. We need to become more adaptable in how we provide community services to keep up with the changing needs. With much of our investment locked into aging community buildings and facilities, we are spending more on renewals and maintenance. This detracts from the amount we can spend delivering the services Aucklanders need. This recovery budget is proposing a move away from an asset-dominated approach to community services. We propose to consider how to better use partnerships, grants, digital and non-asset-based approaches more tailored to community needs. Over time, implementation of this new approach would see us closing some community assets that aren't fit for our purpose and reinvest in services and facilities that better meet the needs of our communities. Thanks, Marina. Next slide, please. The previous 10-year budget accelerated actions to improve our water quality and natural environment. This was funded by the Water Quality Targeted Rate and the Natural Environment Targeted Rate. We are proposing to extend and increase this investment so that we can continue to invest in different parts of the city. Thanks, Maria. This budget proposes to extend the Water Quality Targeted Rate past its end date of 2028 to 2031, so that we can continue to invest in different parts of the city. And it also proposes to increase this rate in line with the projected average increase in general rates. This will be an increase for the average value residential property of $3.30 a year. This will enable us to extend our water quality work to do more in the Manukau Harbour, the Tamaki Estuary, and the beaches stretching from Parnell to Glendowie, and for construction to start in 2022-2023 rather than 6 years later. It will also fund additional litter traps across the entire region to remove contaminants and improve freshwater and coastal water. We are also proposing to extend the Natural Environment Targeted Rate from 2028 to 2031. This allows us to maintain the work we are currently doing on things like addressing kauri dieback and predator and weed control. Our other priorities include investing in Māori outcomes. Council is committed to treaty-based partnerships with Māori. We enable delivery against 10 Māori outcomes strategic priorities through our Māori outcomes portfolio. The portfolio includes our day-to-day activities supplemented by the targeted use of the Māori Outcomes Fund, which is $150 million of investment over the next 10 years. Examples include the Marae Infrastructure Program, which helps Marae to be healthy and sustainable cultural hubs. Ngā Kete Akaranga is our cultural capability program, and Te Kete Rukuruku is returning names to parks and places across Tamaki Makaurau and helps ensure the Māori language is seen, heard, spoken, and learnt in everyday life. Thanks, Maria. And finally, our other priorities include investing in social outcomes. This recovery budget reinstates the contestable funds which were reduced as part of the emergency budget for this year. We are also proposing to embed a $500,000 annual operational fund to work with the other organisations to support homeless people. Continued work with the Southern Initiative and Western Initiative will help disadvantaged sections of our community with skills training and employment pathways. I'm going to hand over to Andrew Duncan now, my colleague, to talk about annual rates and other things.
Good evening. A key part of the balance that Pramod was talking about to enable us to deliver on those key areas he's just discussed is a one-off 5% increase in rates. For an average value residential property, which in Auckland's over $1 million, that would be an annual increase of $150 or $3 a week. For the average value business property of 2.84 million, that's $583 a year. Now that includes the general rates increase, the increase to the water quality targeted rate of $3.30 a year, that Pramod discussed earlier, and a small increase to the base waste management targeted rate we all pay. You can see exactly how your rates will be affected by the proposed changes by going to akhaveyousay.nz/rates guide. And this will show you how each of the changes we're talking about will affect your property. Now, we also have some other changes to our rating policies this year. You could also see how each of these, as I go through the next few slides, will impact on you at that website that was up before. Now, in Auckland at present, we charge slightly lower rates to business and residential properties outside our urban rating area. They pay 90% of the rates of their urban neighbours. Now, we set our urban rating area many years ago, when we were established about 10 years ago. The city's been growing and expanding since then. There are areas being developed just outside the old urban boundary, and these properties are paying lower rates than their neighbours. We also have some increases to our services and the availability of services in some of our more rural townships. So we're proposing to expand the urban rating area to include all the land within the rural urban boundary that can be developed now. And this proposal will affect properties in Pine Valley and Whenuapai, Herald Island, parts of Dairy Flat, Hobsonville, and some other areas of the city. We're also proposing to charge farm and lifestyle properties that are within the urban rating area, the urban residential rate. Now, at present, these properties only pay 80% of the urban residential rate. So for those farm and lifestyle properties that can be developed for residential or business use, we're proposing to charge them the full residential rate, the same as their neighbours. They've got access to similar levels of service as their neighbours, but are paying lower rates. It costs us a similar amount to make those services available. This change won't affect farm and lifestyle properties that are unable to be developed, or in particular, the farm properties where there's high value soils that aren't able to be developed. Got a few other changes to our rating policies that we're consulting on and want your feedback on. We have an accommodation provider targeted rate that's paid only by owners of properties like motels and hotels and Airbnb to recover from them a fair proportion of the money we spend on visitor attraction and major events. Now, with COVID-19 hitting us last year and borders closing and an end to international tourists coming to Auckland, we cut our spending on visitor attraction and major events, and we suspended the accommodation provider targeted rate until the 31st of March this year. We've gone out to consult on 3 options for when we would reinstate that. 1st of April this year, in line with that 1-year suspension, 1st of January next year, or 1st of July next year. And we've gone out with 3 options so we can get the community's views and the councillors can consider those, but also so we can take into account the latest information on when our borders may open and what's happening with the tourism sector and the accommodation sector before a decision is made. We're also proposing to put a rate on Vector to raise money, additional expenditure, so we can undertake an enhanced management of our trees that are near their power lines. And this would enable us to improve public safety around power lines and to reduce power outages. We also have a city centre targeted rate. It's paid for by residential properties and business properties only in the city centre, and we use this money to undertake additional investment in redeveloping the city centre and making it an attractive place to live, work, visit and do business. Now, at the moment, this rate expires in 2024-25. We're proposing to extend it to 2030-31, and that additional 5 years will enable us to invest an extra 157 million over time. There's also a proposal to introduce a bus service connecting Paremaremo to Albany and allowing the residents in the Paremaremo area to connect to our wider public transport network. the proposal is that we would fund that service with a targeted rate on the Perima residents. We're keen to get your views as part of this decision making on our recovery budget. There's a number of different ways you can do that. You can attend a webinar as you have this evening. You can provide feedback online. You can do it in written form. You can get our documents online or at our libraries or service centres. We've got a number of translations, Maori, Korean, Chinese, Samoan, Tongan, and sign language videos available. You can also provide feedback on social media with Facebook, through Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We want to hear from you. Your views are very important to the councillors and helping make their final decisions on the budget and what we're going to do to support the city over the next 10 years. Finally, we'll repeat our website again. Please go to the website, have a look at the information we've got there, make a submission, let us know your views. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew and Pramod. That was very comprehensive in terms of setting out what the proposed changes are. Now, we've got some people out there who we'd really like to hear from. We've got a panel here of our councillors and all sorts of experts that can answer your questions. So if you could pop something into the questions and answers, we'd be really delighted to speak to exactly what you're here listening for. But in the meantime, we'll have some thoughts, I think, from our councillors about this budget and some key messages that they'd like to share and some thoughts. Can I start with you, Councillor Fletcher? So you're at the top of my screen.
Of course. I'm here tonight because I want to hear from all of the region. I think I've attended all but 2 of the webinars, and that's because they sort of crossed over. So I've been very keen to hear what the priority issues are as we travel around the region. It is a juggling act, and those of you who have heard me speak before will know that while there is a COVID dimension to this, I think as much as anything, this is a really good attempt to try and address some of the renewals that we have long needed to try and come to grips with. So it's trying to find the right balance between supporting growth in areas like the Northwest, like the South, and making sure that there is equity in terms of the amenities and the services and things that people expect in terms of the infrastructure in these new communities, because otherwise they're not going to be cohesive communities. But by the same time, we've also got a huge network coming through from amalgamation of all sorts of facilities that we haven't done our renewals on. So how do we get the balance right there? How do we make sure that government is paying its fair share? How do we, given that the unitary plan came in and we didn't stage it, we decided we'd have an all or nothing approach to things. So we don't have the luxury now of looking to stage and sequence the new growth. It is quite a juggling act. And I think the issue of affordability is one that we really have to come to grips with. Yes, we must continue to invest in our city, but by the same time, nor do we want to drive people out of the city. And so I'm really keen to hear from the community in the West. I've got a concern around the targeted accommodation rate. Andrew's referred to it. It's something we're seeking particular feedback on. But if we are to reintroduce it, should there be exemptions? Should part of the city be exempt and the other part have to pay it? Is that fair to the little motelier in the smaller towns vis-a-vis, the larger hotels and so forth? That requires some consideration. But ultimately, you don't have to submit on everything. This is, the business of council is quite complex, but you can tell us what you think on those aspects that you feel particularly strongly about. I feel passionately about parks, and I think most Kiwis really see that network of regional parks and the Department of Conservation estate as part of who we celebrated as we won the America's Cup yesterday. It's that big picture of what touches our heart. but we're not going to see an extension to those inside the current budget. And I'm a great believer in partnerships. The most recent acquisition of a regional park was very much a partnership between the Department of Conservation, Foundation North, the community, with Auckland Council doing the seeding to get it off the ground. And I think that will be the way of the future. But what do you prioritise? Do you want to see more regional parks? Do you want to see less investment in other things? Might be tourism. I don't know. But those are the things that we need to hear from you. So I don't want to monopolise the time, Madam Convener, but really appreciate the opportunity to throw my thoughts in.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. I think Councillor Cooper, as our West representative, can we come to you next to talk about specific things that our customers out there listening might be interested in for the West?
Certainly. Good evening, everyone. I'm Mia and Natasha. I'm not quite sure which area you're from, but we have a regional role as councillors, as Councillor Fletcher said, and Councillor Sayers is here as well, and Councillor Mulholland, and we have to look at the bigger picture, but of course we'll always have our own things that we know our local people are really keen to have done, and a lot of that overlaps in Rodney, Waitakere and the FO. Some of the things that we're looking at, like, we're asking you if you're willing to pay 5% extra, and for the West it's around, and Andrew might correct me, we're saying around $150 extra a year. I think it's a little bit lower for the average home in Waitakere, around 130 a year. So think of it as about, $10 a month, a bit over that. But some of the things we're going to get, and I know is really important to a lot of people in West Auckland, is we finally will get, if we have a 5% increase for 1 year, we will get Lincoln Road started. And that's been a huge bugbear, and we've been waiting for ages. And we've had lots of stop starts for different reasons. So that's a really important one. We'll also get more of our carry dieback standard tracks done to open more tracks in the ranges, and I know, and local parks, and I know people have been very anxious about that. That's really important. We need to protect the carry, but at the same time we've got to be able to recreate in our regional parks, and I know for a lot of the locals next to regional parks that's important for their physical and mental well-being. I've been told that a lot. Some of the other things are up in the Kaipara there, which is really Rodney's, Councillor Sayers area, but it's our region has half of that Kaipara. We're able to put $10 million and match that with government funding to do a lot of work there. We'll also be able to start a lot more water quality work in the Manukau. And a lot of the Waitakere, the southern part of the Waitakere Ranges is affected by that, and we're asked about that a lot. And we know we're putting a lot of money into water quality in the Waitemata at the moment. That's a huge project, but once that's over, there's going to be more money for our other harbours. So we haven't forgotten about the Manukau and the Kaipara at all. I think there will be funding to get going on the Northwestern Busway, and that's really important. I know that's really important. We don't have a rapid transit network north of Henderson, really. We've got our great railway trains out, but we need to get that big catchment, and that will also help our people in Kumeu, because if we can reduce the amount of cars on that motorway, Councillor Sayers, less of your constituents will be blocked up on the motorway, and we'll have more room for freight and our businesses to get moving. So there's some of just the highlights. If we can get that 5% over the line, it's only for 1 year, and we'll go back down to the 3.5. That would give us all right across the region a lot, but those are some of the West highlights.
Great, thanks, Councillor Cooper. We also have Councillor Tracy Mulholland, who's the FO councillor, which obviously is also in the West. So can I come to you now, Councillor Mulholland, please, for your input?
Sure. Look, my view is the purpose of these are actually to listen to people. So I feel a level of discomfort that we are talking about issues that I think we are actually meant to be listening to issues. I do want to tautoko though what has been shared by Councillor Fletcher with regards to the green spaces and challenges the accommodation providers. And thanks, Councillor Cooper, on the basis of sharing information about, you know, the busway. You know, I had some concerns for parts of that area, but really, you know, this is actually an opportunity for us to be listening to what our attendees, and I said we have in terms of participants, I said we have 2 attendees here, so that's great. I would really like to hear from either Mayor or Natasha with regards to your view and opinion. It's also lovely to see the chair of the FO local board here to answer any questions relative to that area. We've been advocating along the same lines for the likes of the Pool and Rec to stay in the LTP, or the recovery budget. So really, you know, I think that it's critical for us to hear from Mayor and Natasha or any others who might like to join and ask questions. And Natasha, I see that you had talked about the Te Whai pathway, and yes, there is funding. Government were very generous with the project recently that there was about $35 million allocated, and we will do some additional funding, although that's not all for the FO, unfortunately. So Linda Cooper, Councillor Cooper, would be able to attest to that, but it is a shared pathway for all people so that we can connect up our communities, and we do have to think regionally. So that's pretty exciting. So yes, I mean, my thoughts are definitely we're about being asked questions, and also I'm happy to take any private emails or council emails if anyone would like to email direct questions. And I'm sure that, well, I can't speak for other councillors, but I'm sure we all are in that position where we would like to hear from you or your friends or associates. Kia ora.
Thank you, and absolutely I support that. The more we can get direct questions, the more that we can actually share with the people who want to ask, need to know. We do have another question from Mia, which is she'd like to thank you all for your hard work, and she'd like to know what West Region will have as investments in libraries, roads and preservation of our environment. So who would like to take that question? Perhaps Councillor Cooper?
Can I start actually on, please, could I start on just the one for the Avondale regeneration? So I think that's critical just to share. We are local, and I do want to also acknowledge that Councillor Cooper and others that have supported the Avondale regeneration. I'm so proud of the work that's gone into that, and as a previous chair, we've spent a lot of time on that. So yes, the Avondale library and community facility is actually allocated and it is proceeding, so that's pretty exciting. I'll just leave it for that. Obviously we do have great libraries here, very well known Blockhouse Bay, fabulous library, and also in Newland, very, very popular, one of the busiest CABs actually. So just sharing with you, there is that matter, and someone else might like to take the other subjects there.
Perhaps on the environment question, Councillor Cooper, are you able to answer that?
Yeah, so I think I touched a little bit on the fact that we still continue with the environment targeted rate to be able to do work on protecting our kāre, and also weed and pest management, and upgrading our tracks to dry tracks so we're not tramping mud around and spreading kāre dieback. I think also probably Chair Greg Presland of the Waitaki Rangers local board might want to speak a little bit to that, but also we've got there's some stormwater issues we're dealing with in Henderson at Corbin Reserve. With that 5%, we'll be able to get that done faster because that's a big flooding issue. So we're working on everything. We had to defer some things in our emergency budget last year, but we were able to get going again. But anything we deferred in the environmental targeted rate and the water quality targeted rate last year, that money stayed in the pot. We just couldn't use it at that time, but we will be continue to use that money and still have a commitment through those targeted rates to that. The other thing was we're going to talk about libraries, I think it was. We were very lucky in Waitakere. I was on the Waitakere City Council, and it's when also Tracy worked for us then. Greg was on the Waitakere City Council at one stage as well, Greg Presland, and we did libraries really well, and we did a lot of libraries, and we've been able to build, I think, three more since amalgamation. We planned beforehand, but we opened the Ranui Library, Te Manawa Library, and Te Atatu Library and Community Centre. So we're pretty well served for libraries compared to a lot of other areas. So as far as I know, there's no major plans for new libraries in our area. We need to concentrate on some other areas because we've done so well with libraries. And of course, we acknowledge our voluntary libraries out at Piha, which the council do give a grant to, and Waiatarua Library.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. And as Councillor Cooper mentioned, we've actually got the chair of the local board, Greg Presland. And I'm not sure if I can see him on the screen. If you're there, Greg, do you want to add into this conversation? Give you a moment. No, we seem to be having a few technical issues tonight with what we can see and what's there. So I beg your pardon for that. Now, given that we've also got Councillor Sayers here, perhaps we can cut to you. So if it's not one Greg, we'll go to another. And if you could share your thoughts on the budget and the particular pressing issues for Rodney's connection into this west space, Councillor Sayers.
Thank you very much, Sally. Very kind of you. I think probably what councillors do hear a lot about is like, how come councils putting up rates when businesses and households don't have the same ability in the COVID environment? And I think that's quite an important thing to address in terms of why it's called a recovery budget. A recovery budget is trying to spend more money to stimulate the economy, to try and stimulate opportunities, stimulate constructions so Auckland can move forward. So this is a chance for the viewers to say, well, look, I don't agree with that, or I do agree with that, okay? And I think that's something that we quite hear a lot about. To be fair, the budget is complex. There's a lot of topics that need covering, and we ask a lot of questions about a lot of variety of issues. If people do feel that's a bit daunting, you know, I know that we can just take feedback directly to ak.haveyourSay@aucklandcouncil.gov.nz directly, if people don't want to go through the whole form filling out exercise as well, because there could be things that people have got specific feedback about rather than going through the whole feedback form as well. So I just wanted to share that with our viewers as well, constituents. And I guess, Councillor Cooper touched on this, you know, in the Northwest and the FO, I know Councillor Mulholland's, you know, very keen advocate on this as well, and Shane Henderson as well as a councillor out west as well. The traffic build up and congestion that's happening there seems to feel it's got no relief. And some of that might be central government responsibility and some of it might be local government responsibility. But I just wonder if the people listening in tonight would like to ask the question of us, like, because I'd like to know, I'm sure my colleagues would like to know, are we communicating well enough about what solutions we're offering in terms of a 3.5% or a 5% rates increase in terms of alleviating cars on the road, emissions, and travel times, making those more easy for people living in the west and the northwest. So, Sally, I'll just leave it at that. I just hope that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Sayers. And I think if I can call to the people out there, there's some questions that Councillor Sayers raised. If you want to just pop some your thoughts into the Q&A, we'd love to answer them. And the person we haven't heard from, of course, is our FO local board, Kay Thomas. So can I come to you now, Kay, for your thoughts and particularly relating to your area?
Yes, our first priority is actually to do with urban ngāhere, planting more trees. And as Councillor Mulholland mentioned, we have the priority of ensuring that the multi-purpose facility in Avondale is constructed. So I think Councillor Mulholland covered our area quite well, and I'm happy to answer any questions that our people attending may have. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. In some of the other sessions, we haven't got the questions here, but there've been particular questions raised around the fairness of rates and the opportunities for people. And Andrew, I think perhaps you can talk to some of the options that we have for rates postponement and other things, just to share the ways and means that people can look at, equalising the way that they're paying their rates to council.
So if you or any of your friends or community is struggling with your rates, please get in touch with the council. Our rates team will look to talk to you about whether you can make some payment arrangements. We'll also help you apply for the government's rates rebate that we administer on their behalf. And this could offer you up to $655 off your rates for Auckland Council. It is means tested. In addition, Auckland Council offers a rates postponement scheme to residential ratepayers. Any residential ratepayer can apply. It's not means tested. You do have to have at least 20% equity in your property after postponing the rates. And our current interest rate's 1% on the rates postponement. I'm happy to answer any questions that I can on any of those issues.
Great, thank you. And I'm conscious that we've got some of our specialists here in the panel, and I wonder if we can just cut to them. Perhaps for some of the other sessions you've been on, there might be some really useful questions you may want to have a very quick word on. And we've got
Sally,
Anna,
can I just touch on, if it's possible?
Yes, sorry, Councillor Richard, yep.
I'd just like to touch on the importance of what Andrew has just said, that the way that we calculate rates is based on the capital valuation of the property. And that's going to vary enormously across the region. There's some areas, and it's one of the dilemmas I have living in the central part of Auckland, that we've got communities that people have lived there for a long time, and they may have a valuable asset, but they may not have the income that actually is going to enable them. So what Andrew's just told you is really important. I went on the Have Your Say on the estimate. You can actually see what the increase might mean for you personally. And in my case, the house, the old villa that I bought 42 years ago, it's going to go up by, what did I read, $963. And so I thought, well, I've been there a long time, and I'll check out the person who mows my lawns. That's going to go up by $397. And these are big sums for people. These, but I know and I can see the need, and I want you to know how important those who are online this evening, you've had such passionate advocates in your elected members from the West, and they are articulating the need for that investment in the West. But it's about getting that balancing act right. So I do think these issues of mitigation and what Andrew has talked about in terms of options for people who might be struggling. And sometimes people are really embarrassed to let on that they are struggling, but that's just something that we've got to factor into that. And Councillor Sayers talked about, what's in people's minds when they say, well, how can it be that we just raise rates when we're going through some difficulties? And for those of us who lived through the crash of '87, you don't necessarily feel the pain of a recession until a year or two later. And so I think people are trying to be quite careful at the moment. They are a little bit concerned about the future, but by the same token, the city can't wait for us all to feel more comfortable about things. It has to keep investing because we've got contractual obligations in a lot of places. So I think Andrew has really given us quite a good little smorgasbord of those opportunities that people can avail themselves of.
Thanks, Councillor Fletcher. And I just remind people that all of that information is available on the council's website if you want to go there and find out more. There's a few of the key topics that have been raised in Andrew's presentation. One of them is the housing changes, particularly around the Kumeu area. And Anna, we have here as our Housing and Urban Growth Specialist. And can I just ask you perhaps to share some information on where all of that fits for our audience to know?
Sure, thanks, Sally. So within the consultation document for the long-term plan, we talk about housing and urban growth. And we're talking about a focused approach to that, to supplying infrastructure and locations. So we're seeing substantial growth right across the Auckland region. Our consenting numbers are hitting record highs. We consented 17,000 new dwellings in the last year. And this growth is happening right across the region, as I said, and particularly in the West as well. And it's not just about building housing. We want to ensure that people have good access to public transport and employment as well in these locations. So, but with this being a recovery budget and funds being limited, we really need to focus our infrastructure spend in some key locations. So there's some examples within the consultation document, including examples in the Northwest of where we can start to focus. And in these locations, we're working with central government to look at how we sort of unlock these areas as well. Where there's been some funding through central government out in the Northwest through the Shovel Ready Fund for bus station in Westgate, the FO pathway, which was just touched on previously, as well as some former funding from the government as well out in Whenuapai. So I think it's really important. It's a big challenge looking at how we fund this infrastructure gap. But as I said, we are looking closely and doing work in the West as well as central government. Obviously, housing affordability is a key concern for a lot of people. And that is something our planning committee have been doing work on and looking at advocating towards central government, because many of the changes need to happen at really the national level. So we are working, as I said, on that supply, consenting high numbers, but we know that there's a challenge around housing affordability, and we're working to advocate to central government for change at really the national level in some of those areas. Thanks, Sally.
Thanks, Anna. Most of the councillors have touched on quite a lot about the environmental issues out in the West, and we know that it's quite passionate and green, and there might be a lot of people there who want to know a bit more about that. So we've got Lucy, who's the climate action specialist. Lucy, can you just have a perhaps wrap up some of the things that our councillors have shared?
Sure. So I think when you look at the climate investment package and the draft 10-year budget, it's around 150 million, and Pramod's talked about some of the outcomes we can deliver through that. And so that's things like accelerating how quickly we can electrify the bus fleet, being able to expand our network of community recycling centres and resource recovery parks. And one of those resource recovery parks will be in West Auckland at the the site of the Waitakere transfer station. So that's pretty exciting. I think that could be a source of local employment, as well as making really big difference in terms of waste to landfill. Some of the other big changes will be more street tree planting. And I think obviously, in lots of Waitakere, you have a really amazing canopy cover already, but there are parts of the West which would benefit from having more mature street trees. And yeah, I think other things in the climate package that would particularly benefit West Auckland is there's quite a focus on equity. So one of the projects is around establishing more community food hubs that take food from supermarkets that would otherwise go to landfill and share it with communities so that they have affordable, sustainable food options. And yeah, those are some of the main things that would be relevant to the West, I think. I guess the big thing, that we know is that climate change is happening, it's here, and we need to start responding to it. This package won't solve all of our problems, and it's not the whole of Council's climate response, but it is a good start, and it puts us on the right pathway for more change in future.
Sally, can I talk a little bit about that? We do also have, it might have been talked about, but we have some funding for another big seedling nursery, so we can actually have enough trees to plant, and that's a regional budget, but I see some real opportunities of sharing that love across the region, and a bit the same as the resource recovery. If we've got different areas around the city that can do that, and right around the region, we can have local employment, or even, for example, we've got something like that in Te Atatu already, not run by the council, but on council leased park, where local drug and alcohol court young people are doing their community hours there, working with kaumātua often, who can kind of mentor them, give them a real purpose, teach them a lot about our environment, climate, about growing things. And so I see some real opportunities with that budget. It's for climate change, but it can have multiple community benefits for our young people, for our communities, and for jobs. So I think there's some, you know, it's not use a climate change budget, but let's get some multiple benefits. And the other thing is there's a lot of climate change initiatives right through our budget, but they're not labelled climate change. So just the fact that we're putting money into public transport, it starts to address those emissions. So it's not a climate change budget, but we want to impact the effect we're having on the environment.
Thanks. Yeah, absolutely. Now we've got no more questions in our questions and answers, and I'm quite keen that we just please, if you've got anything, do send it through. But otherwise, we might just whiz around our panel. We've had it talk to the key points, but there's probably some general thoughts just in closing on the budget, and particularly in how we want all of you out there to have your say, because the more information we have, the more we can use to understand what we should be doing, and prioritisation, all of those things that we need your input on. So this time I'm going to start down the bottom and go to Councillor Mulholland, if you don't mind. Any final thoughts from you? Any burning issues that we haven't talked about that you'd like to just finish on? Oh, you're just on mute. There you go.
Yeah, I realise that. Sorry, just give me a moment. Yeah, it's thanks. So mine is actually, if Mia and Natasha are still online, it says that you are. Thanks for joining us. That's my thoughts. This is actually about you. So lucky you, you've got a wealth of knowledge here, and please feel free to contact myself, or I know other councillors and elected members would be happy to support responding to any answers. And I do want to acknowledge the staff for working tonight. I know I had to come home from committee and work as well, and some other things. So nice to have the staff here, kia ora for that, and to see our fabulous councillors working together. I think that is something that's really important to acknowledge. We work together and we listen. So to our attendees, it's all about you. So please, you know, feel free to email, and if you have heard sufficient, that's great. Put your submission in. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Cooper?
I would have thought I've said enough tonight, but anyway, I'll take this opportunity. It is, I mean, this is the good part of the job, when we get to engage, you know, either not face to face, but pretty close with members of our community. And so that's important. Councillor Shane Henderson sends his apologies. He's on looking after toddler duty tonight because his wife's away for work. But we will be at the Swanson Station Cafe at 1 o'clock on Saturday. If you do want to have a face-to-face, we're available. I think the other thing, looking at this budget, look, nobody likes to pay more rates, to be quite honest, but we've looked long and hard at the options here, and we truly believe the majority of us, not everybody, but the large majority, feel that we do need to catch up on some of our renewals of some of our facilities. We've, if you look at our rates over years, they've been kept a bit historically low. If you compare them to other parts of the country, they're in the double digits they're proposing, and not just for 1 year. So we feel we've struck a bit of a balance. It's only that increase for 1 year. And I've asked Sally to share, we've got a rates calculator on our website, which is really good. You just type in your address and it tells you under the proposal how much more you would pay. And I find that right, because mine's 223. So I'm a little bit above the average. But I feel for me, it's about $20 a month I'm quite happy because I want us to look after the environment. I want us to get a busway. I want Lincoln Road to get done. I want our tracks to be, more tracks to be open. And I do want a swimming pool for the Northwest. And so all of those sorts of things can't be done without that. So I'm happy to pay my share. But I know it's not easy for everybody and it's something you've got to consider. So we would really love it if you'd send us in your views, because it all counts and we do get a really good synopsis of everything we get. So thank you very much for joining us, and thanks to all our staff and fellow elected members.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Councillor Fletcher, any final thoughts from you?
I sat and watched, as everybody did last night, the excitement of what took place in the viaduct, and I contemplated how long it takes to build a city. I remember chairing the select committee that saw through some of the changes that allowed that public space to be created. I went through the investment that we needed as a member of the Legacy Auckland City Council, and all that tells me is that it's not a short-term thing. To build something that's enduring, that's worthy of being the largest city in this utterly beautiful country is hard. And yet when it happens, everybody just takes it for granted and thinks, gosh, that was always going to happen. So I want people to think strategically about that, but it must take everybody along on the journey. So that is, that playing Solomon, people in my area are going to be, because it's become probably more gentrified than it was when a lot of people bought their houses years ago, but they necessarily haven't got the money. They will probably receive less by way of services, because we know that investment has to go into the growth areas. And that's just about playing fair. But what is fair? That's really the question tonight. And I hope that people don't just tell us what you don't like, tell us what you do like as well. And as Greg has said, you don't have to comment on everything. Tell us about those things that are really important to you. But I'd just like to thank you, Madam Convener. It's been a pleasant session to be part of, and thank the officers and the passionate elected members that are here. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. And I think I'm not sure if we're running out of time, but let's go to our faux local board, Kay Thomas, if you've got your last thoughts for us, Kay.
It's hard to remember that bit. I want to thank Natasha and Mia for coming along, and if you are from the faux area, I'd really like to hear any of your thoughts, and I'm sure that Greg Presland would like to hear from you if you live in the Waitakere Ranges area. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally over to you, Councillor Sayers, your final thoughts to wrap up.
All right, well, thank you very much, Sally. I'll be quick. Sometimes public can feedback to us that they feel outcomes are predetermined and that their input isn't important, but that's not true. All of us sit around that governing body table and we take in deep considerations of what we read. And what does carry a lot of weight is volumes of submissions on certain items. So, if there's certain concerns or feedback that people want to give, they must give it. It's really important. And I do think for people taking the time out tonight to tune in and listen to us, and hopefully they've picked up some words of wisdom, particularly from our officers, also from councillors and local board chairs. But I do want to thank you, Sally, for hosting. I do want to thank the officers, but most of all, I do want to thank the participants for being here, because this is a democracy. It is a strong democracy, and it is an important one. And this is an important part of the process. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. And look, I think the final thoughts for everyone is just to remind you all, and thank you so much for participating and listening, and thanks obviously to the panel and the staff, but the most important thing is that you do have your say. Go on the website, send that feedback. It is democracy in action. And all of that feedback is the valuable information that we need to make decisions on what's happening for this recovery budget, and where we put our priorities and our money. So thank you so much, everybody. If anyone's got any final thoughts, put your hand up. Otherwise, we might wrap up there. Bear in mind, this is going to be recorded and presented on the website. All of that information, I think Councillor Cooper mentioned, the being able to check on your rates rises, that's on the website. We'll share that. So go to the website, go to AK Have You Say, and please share your thoughts. We'd welcome them. So thank you, everybody. Kia ora, and good night. Thank you.